You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host Kevin. Alex has got a little bit of the car issues, couldn't make his way to the studio tonight, type of thing. So it's gonna be Kevin and I for you. Alex will be back hopefully next week. How you doing tonight?
Oh man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So traveling for a little bit of work this week. All good things, but hotel technology is interesting to say the least. But dude, the Broncos have a win streak. Like, it's not just a game and a fluke. Like, it is a legitimate win streak. And if you would have told me coming into the season that the Broncos are going to be 4-5 through 10 weeks, but they beat Kansas City once and they beat Buffalo. Dude, I think I take that. Like, okay, we're there. We're hopefully getting better. And sure enough, they are, right? Like, I mean, it wasn't the prettiest Monday night game, but it was effective enough on the road against a team that they're kind of falling out of sorts here a little bit, but Buffalo is still a good team, right? It is not a cakewalk to go into Buffalo in primetime television. That stadium was loud. And the Broncos went in, they forced turnovers, and they did just enough despite their kicker. And
Yeah, it was definitely an interesting end to that, right? Like, I'm still a little upset from the standpoint that, one of those missed extra points would have carried things over just enough that something else would have hit and come along there, right, along those points. But it's very interesting, right, when you sit there and you think about the fact that the Broncos are on a win streak. Right. It's also very interesting. Like, if you would have told me before the season started that the Raiders and the Bills would have had the same record at after week 10, I don't think I would have believed you. Same thing too, if we had gotten to a point, like there's so many interesting dynamic kind of crazy things going on here with some of these things that it is very, very interesting to say the least, right? Like Cincinnati, Buffalo, both of those guys were kind of season Super Bowl contenders to start the deal, and now they're on the outside looking in. So that's another kind of crazy storyline that if you told me that after week 10, Cincinnati and Buffalo were on the outside looking into the playoffs, if you told me that the Raiders had the same record as the Bills, if you told me that Cleveland was 6-3, sitting second in their division without Watson having played in a majority of those games, I don't know that I would have believed any of those storylines to start the season. So it has been very interesting to say the least. So I know that Kevin's been having he's got them Wi-Fi issues going on there, and he'll be back in here in a little bit. So we'll try and keep rocking and rolling on that one. Technology is the fun, but we're gonna try and get through this the best that we can tonight. And so we'll kind of take a look at some of the comments, some of the questions kind of coming in here as well. So Miss COD Reaper says, if only played Josh Dobbs, 53.25 would have pulled out of the dub. Trevor Lawrence at 14.3 needs some milk and an ice bath. The final was 110 to 156. Need tight end, wide receiver, kicker. He's got I think that's Taysom Hill, T. Higgins, but looking at Noah Brown, B Books, and Tyler Boyd, Darius Slayton in free agency.
well, Hill's on a bye this week.
Mm-hmm.
And Higgins is questionable. So,
Boyd seems like kind of the easy guy to pick up there. And if Higgins doesn't go, you've got the pivot.
Yeah, and Noah Brown's been on a bit of a heater here, so I think Noah Brown might be a guy that you want to pivot to and make space for on your roster right now to have that flexibility, because if Higgins can't go and with Taysom on a bye, you need something.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I think those are kind of your two best shots there. Terrence asking, start the Ravens defense, the Lions, or Dolphins defense this week.
I'm not opposed to starting the Ravens defense just because they do continue to find ways to get you points, right? I mean, even in a losing effort, they put up what 13 fantasy points last week for you. So I'm leaning towards the Ravens, but the Lions are a decent pivot this week against Chicago. So if you are going to pivot, I think the Lions would be the direction that you want, not
Yeah,
Dolphins
I wouldn't
at
go
home
with.
against Vegas. The Dolphins at home against Vegas, coming off a bye. Like you could think good things are happening there. I'm going to tell you, Terrence, stay with the Ravens. Like there's no sense in being cute about this. The Ravens defense has been really good the last few weeks. I think you continue to ride that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's going to be the way that I would roll there as well. So he said he got the win last week. Great call on the Noah Brown and the Ravens defense there. So some good things rocking and rolling on that one on the calls there. He is asking to start two running backs, Achane, Ford, Hall, Harris.
Devin Achane and Hall for me.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way that I would roll there as well. I could see potentially going with a Najee there, but yeah, he's been on a heater. But they got the Browns, and that defense I think is going to be looking to change things around and change their fortunes a little bit, having kind of an uncharacteristic showing. Like that was one of those that game got kind of belligerent there, where they just both defenses, it became an offensive showdown there in the second half. So I think the Browns are looking to come back and make a statement in that one as well. And Pittsburgh tends to have a tough time moving the ball. So yeah, it's Achane and Hall for me. COD Ripper, Dobbs, Mostert, Brian Robinson, Thielen, Debo, Taysom Hill, Metcalf, Joseph. The Jets defense bench is James Cook, Hubbard, Higgins, Deontay Johnson, and Myers. I think you're probably all right there.
Hill's on a bye, so that's going to be the one thing that you have to pivot away from.
Yeah, unless that's Tyreek Hill, but I don't think that is. I think that's Taysom Hill.
Yeah,
so yeah, you're gonna have to find a tight end to pick up and put in there. So Terrence asking start two, Kupp, Wilson, Cooper, Pickens, and Brown.
Man.
And so he's also got the question of which wide receiver, running back should I flex. So this is a start two running back, start two wide receiver, and a flex play between Achane, Ford, Hall, Harris, Kupp, Wilson, Cooper, Pickens, and Noah Brown.
So for the wide receivers, I'd tell you Kupp and Wilson. And so now it just comes down to, do you trust what Noah Brown's been doing, or are you going to pivot to Jerome Ford, who you know is going to see, 15 plus touches in this game against Pittsburgh?
Right. Noah Brown very much it depends on that one for, it depends on that one for me, just from the standpoint that if Nico Collins is back, right? Like I think that definitely does limit Noah Brown's upside on that one. Noah Brown kind of filling in the role that Nico typically sees in that offense there. So if Nico's back, I think we see Brown kind of fade back there a little bit as well. I do like the Ford call there, right? Like consistent floor, those types of things there. So I also wouldn't necessarily, if Deshaun is actually, going to play ready to go on this one, I wouldn't mind the Amari Cooper play there as well. But I think I would roll out Ford as probably the number one flex is how I'd roll that one. Any other thoughts there?
No, I guess Cooper. Cooper's not bad. Cooper's not bad. He doesn't have the upside that I feel like the other two have, just because the Browns are rather limited passing the football at times. But Deshaun does target him, right? So you're going to see 7 or 8 targets at least. So 5 catches plus, and you're hoping he falls in the end zone.
Yeah, and that end zone's the big question mark there. COD Reaper saying he dropped Higgins for Noah Brown.
Okay. I would have dropped Chuba Hubbard, but that's just me.
Same. Yeah. Yeah, I would have done that, or potentially. Yeah, I would have pivoted somewhere else on that one, but I get the move. T. Higgins certainly a disappointer at this point in the season there.
Yeah, he's definitely a draft bust for where people were drafting him at the back end of the second, possibly early round of the third.
Right. So that's kind of the questions that we've got there so far. Anything of news note that came in that you want to hit up?
No, not really. I didn't feel like there was anything super worthy other than I guess the Bills firing their offensive coordinator, right? I guess that is the news that kind of came out of the weekend. Apparently he's throwing the ball and not letting passes go through his hands and short throwing receivers and everything else. It was his fault that Josh Allen has 11 interceptions this year.
Right. Actually, Josh Allen, I saw a stat that he has like the most turnovers in the league over the last several seasons, right? He's got the most touchdowns, but also has the most turnovers there. So kind of an interesting deal there. And that's
though, right? Like you live by the sword and you die by the sword. Like
right.
That's how this offense has been built because they refuse to run the ball. If they would have sat back and ran the ball last night, they would have crushed the Broncos.
Right.
But instead, they wanted to get cute because James Cook fumbled on the first play of the game. That was a great strip. Like, that was not James Cook being careless with the football. That was just a great strip. But the same token, Gabe Davis lets one bounce off his hands and the Broncos intercept it, and they don't bench Davis.
Right.
Like, it just, I don't understand some of the coaching decisions. Like, you got to catch the ball. Like, that interception, yes, it goes against Josh Allen. That was on Gabe Davis. That wasn't behind him. That was a professional catch right there. Like, you are slightly outside of your body frame, but you are not fully extended by any stretch. And you just let it go in between your hands. And who was it? Simmons? Simmons was back there to pick it off. Like, it was, I don't know. Like, and again, James Cook is dynamic. Like, James Cook should be getting as much hype as everyone's giving to Jahmyr Gibbs, but the Bills don't know how to handle him. Like, and you saw it when he got back into the game. He gashed the Broncos. He had over 100 yards rushing after missing a quarter of the game because he got benched.
Well, not only that, like there's I sit there and even the second strip fumble on that one, right? Like the amount of players that can make that play where they fumbles, they scoop it up, and he didn't even really lose a step doing that one. Like that's if you just kind of goes to speak to the dynamic ability of Cook there, right? Like not only that, but the Broncos had a game plan going into that one where they knew they had to turn over the Bills to get in that game and keep that game close and be able to stay in that game. And they did. Like they were opportunistic, looking for ways to turn over the ball and found the ways to get that done. So,
yeah, it was, and that's how they're gonna have to play.
Right. So it's just very interesting that's kind of the way that's coming across there. But you take the team and you build a game plan for the players that you got and strengths and weaknesses and all of that. And the Broncos have done a really good job in season making those changes to get 3 in a row here.
Yeah, well, and that's what it is. What is a testament to the coaching staff not giving up on the players and the players being willing to buy in, right? Like they are a completely different team right now than what they were the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. And it does feel like they have bought in, right? They're playing to the strengths of the offense, right? A little bit of play action pass, have Russ get it out quick. And now that he's being a little mobile, I think that helps, right? It helps make everyone stay honest in their passing lanes, right? And the fact that he's going to scramble. So if they're able to keep this up, I'm not saying playoff success, right? But I am saying competitive. They will be a thorn in everyone's side going
Right.
forward because they still have a couple games going up against the Chargers. They have another game with the Raiders, so they can still do damage inside the division. And they still have, I mean, they have the Vikings this week. They still have the Browns. Like, so there's winnable games out there.
Yeah, there certainly is. And it'll be very interesting to see how that kind of, unfolds down the stretch here for them and kind of getting Bronco country back in the fold here. And it's good to see some of these changes being made and some of these things kind of shaken out here because this team that started off here in week 3 and that massive debacle against the Dolphins and where they have come back to reel off 3 in a row. Like that's just astounding. Like that I would not have thought that would have been possible. If you told me right after they got 70 points hung on them that they would have been able to turn around, reel off 3 straight with 2 of those wins coming against the Chiefs and the Bills. So it is pretty spectacular. So I like it. Yeah, I was trying to think of anything else of news and note, and I'm kind of striking out here on that one. So unless you've got anything else of news or note, should we hit up some old Pine and Shine recaps?
Yeah, let's do it.
All righty. So we got the Pine, we got the Shine here. Recap of week 10. I'll go ahead and do Alex's Pines if you want to get his Shines here. So Alex had a pretty good Pine week here where he called for Aaron Jones, DJ Moore, Evan Ingram to do that. And he ended up with positive points on every single one of those. Each one of those guys missing both their projections and their ranks there. So Alex coming out with a pretty good overall Pine week. My Pine was kind of a mixed bag, right? Like T. Higgins called for that Pine. We found out late in the week that he had was not going to make it. So that got me 0 points on that one as did not play. Rashad White missed that one, hit on the Mark Andrews pretty good. So came out slightly positive on my Pines here.
Yeah, I had Josh Jacobs going up against the Jets, so that was a hit. Michael Pittman struggled a bit against the Pats, and then Kyle Pitts and the abysmal quarterback play that is coming out of Atlanta. So, good week really for all of us on the Pines, right? Yeah, the Rashad White one didn't hit for you, but realistically, I mean, across the board, if we say we were 7-9, that's a winning formula right there.
Absolutely. All righty, let's go ahead and hit the Shine recaps here.
This is where things kind of took a turn for the interesting, right? So, Alex had Najee Harris on his Pine list. He got into the end zone. Actually, him and Warren both had really good games for the Steelers going up against the Packers. So missed on that one. Marquise Brown, I was on this train with Alex. Really thought that Marquise Brown was going to have more of a role. Turns out Kyler Murray loves himself some Trey McBride. So yay to my home league team. And then Irv Smith was held very much in check and extremely quiet against the Texans.
Yeah, my shine did not do very well, with the exception of Cortland Sutton. Right, had the Tyler Algier. Uh, yeah, we finally had a Bijan sighting there. Right, we talked about, you mentioned the horrible quarterback play in Atlanta. Well, they finally decided to let Bijan do some Bijan type things in Atlanta, and Tyler Algier was not much of a factor there. Cortland Sutton had that amazing catch in the
What
end zone
a
last night.
catch that was!
Yes.
What again? And that's what was the game earlier this season where he had one like that, and it was in the same corner of the end zone too.
Right.
Um, he's not as fast as he used to be, and he's never quite been the same since the knee injuries. Part of it's been quarterback play and offensive design. But I tell you what, like Cortland Sutton inside the red zone is a weapon. Like
Mm-hmm.
he absolutely finds ways to come down with catches that very few players in the NFL can come down with.
Yeah, I was trying to think on that one, right? Like, and that's one of those that won't necessarily get the kind of the play and replay and all of that catch truly deserves, right? Like you think about it, what are the catches we always see constantly highlighted and really, played at nauseum, for years and years and years. It's always the OBJ catch, right? Like doing that one, George
Sick.
Pickens. It was, but like there's again, right? Like there's, even at a professional level, there's not many receivers that could have made that catch. Like they're not, right? Like
Yeah,
there's
just without looking down to know exactly where the end zone stopped, and you just come to a dead stop and you secure that catch with a shoestring, right? Like we are talking a quarter of an inch, maybe 2 or 3 blades of bluegrass in that artificial turf, whatever, in that end zone, and to come down with that, absolutely crazy. It was an amazing catch.
right. But that was also my only shine that actually hit for me. Kate Otten did not do very good things there, so I ended up with some negative points coming after my shines.
I was kind of right there with you. Ramondre Stevenson didn't get the job done in an abysmal Germany game between the Colts and the Patriots. Close, but no cigar. JSN, the point total was right on, but one spot behind is projected, so I just missed out on that break even there. And then Taysom Hill in a game where the Saints were trailing, right? They needed some different type of offense to get the ball going as they were struggling a little bit against the Vikings. And Taysom Hill got ghosted. And that was unfortunate because he had been on quite a bit of a tear. So that one hurt me quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't understand how the Saints were doing that thing and what Derek Carr was doing on that one. They were down. They got down early. Like that turned into a game script where they should have been throwing the ball all over the yard. And there was at halftime, I don't even think Olave had a single target at that point, right? And that was one of those that I texted both you and Alex in the group chat that I think I missed Andy Dalton quarterbacking the Saints, because Andy Dalton at least distributed the ball and made the rest of those guys fantasy relevant. We I have yet to see that from Derek Carr. Like the only person that Derek Carr seems to make fantasy relevant is Alvin Kamara when he checks it down 13 times for 30 yards in receptions. Like,
Yeah, and the problem with that division in general is someone has to win it, right? So someone is inevitably picking inside of the top 16 for the draft, or outside of the top 16 for the draft, because they made it to the playoffs. Um, and then the other teams kind of get to pick respectively inside the top 15 because of where they're going to finish up. And right now the Saints are, the leader in a bad clubhouse, but it's going to cost them a little bit. And it's really unfortunate for Chris Olave. And yes, he did end up getting there. The second half was much better. Ended up getting you there if you had him playing on your fantasy roster. So the end result you're happy with, but it just it's not fun and it's not easy to watch the Saints right now. It is really choppy, I guess, ho hum type football they're playing.
right. Well, except for the Panthers in that division, they'll be not picking in what looks like a top 5 pick. They'll be sending that over to the Chicago Bears. So anyway, looking at it, we got to, you know what? I think we're going to just put a petition out there that Alex can no longer miss the Tuesday shows, because when he misses it and he just submits his picks on the back end, he ends up having the best week of anybody on this.
He's been on a little heater here the last 5 weeks. Look at his score. Like he's been
3 weeks in a row with the high score here. So 3 weeks in a row with the high score. Well, he's sneaking up there. So good for him. We'll turn up the heat here a little bit here in our Pine Shine section, see what we can do on turning the favors or turning the tide in our favor.
Right, exactly.
All righty. We do have a couple of questions coming in here. Let's hit up the chat, and then we'll get into the Thursday night breakdown here. Terrence saying right now he has Stroud, Hall, Achane, Cup, Wilson, Ford if Watson is out, Ferguson, Ravens, and Hopkins. I think he's saying if Watson's out, because I think if not, I think he was going to pivot to Cooper Cup or to Amari Cooper there.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that lineup going in.
And he's going up against Tua, Mostert, Wilson Jr., Evans, Lockett, Kittle, Gus Edwards, the Cowboys, and Moody. Man, you just got to hope that the Dolphins are held in check here a little bit, and you should be all right.
Yeah, I mean, Edwards, you're always afraid about the touchdown vulture. The Cowboys going up against Carolina should be a plus matchup for him. I like Mike Evans this week. So I think there's some upside there. But outside of that, I don't like Jeff Wilson at all. So he's clearly going to be the third man on this totem pole in Miami as far as I've seen it so far. So I think you got really good shot here, Terrence.
All right. And Tua has been a little bit struggle busting last little bit. And the Raiders have kind of come out of, right, like they're playing really, really well. But that defense has actually been better lately than what I had anticipated. So they're right, like that matchup isn't as good as it may seem. So you've got a puncher's chance in this one, I think. Ajiji, start 3 in PPR: Gibbs, Monty, Rashad White, Swift, Warren, Addison, and DJ. Your first 3 is how I'd roll that. Gibbs, Monty, and Rashad.
You want both Lions? I know they're playing the Bears, but the Bears have actually been pretty decent against the run because they've been giving up through the air so much.
They have. But even at that point, right, he said it's a full PPR. The Bears still allow the 6th most points to opposing running backs there. And this is one of those that, we could very well see, Gibbs get it through the air. Monty gets it on the ground. Both of them get 15 opportunities and away you go. Swift, I'm not a fan of Swift's matchup this week. I've got him later on in that old Pine and Shine section, and you can guess where I've got him in that section based on that. Warren, that was up against Cleveland, right? Addison potentially there, but on DJ Moore, I don't want DJ Moore up against the Lions. Like this is DJ Moore's a 5 for 50 guy. That again, like that's where he's settled back into 2 blow-up games and then 5 for 55 on like everything else.
It's also been without Fields, and Fields we expect to be back, right? And so I think DJ Moore has sneaky upside in a game where we feel like they're going to be trailing in Chicago, right? So if you're going to beat the Lions, you beat them through the air. They've been susceptible all season long. It's kind of the reverse of last year, right? Last year they got gashed on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
This year the secondary is getting burned. These are tough. This is a tough decision because I think I would go With it being a full PPR, I think I'd go Gibbs, Rachaad White, and DJ Moore, and then Swift, and then Monty. As crazy as that sounds. And as soon as I say that, we could see Monty, have a crazy game. But I think the days of him having 25 touches a game are behind us, right? Gibbs is too good, and Gibbs gets that receiving work. So Gibbs and Rachaad, we both agree on completely. So we got 2 out of the 3. And then your third, Warren and Addison are definitely no's, I think, as far as we're both concerned, right, Derek? And so then it's Monty, Swift, or DJ Moore. So it just I think it kind of comes down to your preference. I would lean Swift, but I'm a sucker for having a player on Monday night and something to root for.
Right. And part of that is the Kansas City's defense has been just really good, kind of all season long. And so I think that that is a negative matchup there, right? Or a minus matchup. DJ, I think he gets you 5 for 55. Like, that's really kind of where I see that one. So he gets you 10.5 points there. Swift. Whereas Monty, Monty may not get 25 carries. I think it's a very realistic expectation for him to get 15 carries and be able to run at 5 to 6 yards a clip with 2 or 3 carries inside the 5. So, I think that there's a real chance that you see Monty 15 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown. Is kind of where I'm seeing that one play out.
So, again, the Bears have been bad through the air.
Right.
But over the last 4 weeks, they've given up the 5th fewest points to running backs.
True. And actually, I guess the sweat coming in there has also kind of changed that line as well.
I like one of the 2 of them, but I don't know that I want both.
That's fair.
That's me. I don't want both attached to that game. So I'm good with one, and really either one, I think a strong argument can be made for, but I personally do not want both attached to this game.
No, and that's a really good point. As much as I want to do it, I don't think I can in good faith give the advice of start both Lions running backs there, even though I'm trying to make the push for that one. I think you're right. Right? Like you've got to spread that out a little bit, and you've got to take your shots other places. So Gibbs, Rachaad, absolutely. I'm gonna pivot off of Monty, and
I'm going to tell you this too, to try and finish my full tilt pivot. Kansas City, last 4 weeks, giving up the 8th most points to fantasy running backs, 24.5 points per game. They're giving up to fantasy running backs.
All right, you talked me into it.
With
Swift.
3 touchdowns given up to running backs in the last 4 games.
Yeah. I mean, they can only brotherly shove, inside like the 2 or 3 yard line. So, if 4 or 5 yards out, Swift's got a chance. So, yeah. Okay. I think I'm on there. I think I'm on the Gibbs, Rachaad, Swift train.
There we go.
All right.
Art of negotiation.
There we go. All right. Ajishi saying the wire is Barrett tight end. He has Taysom on bye. Any deep dive tight ends you like? Sure. We got all sorts of tight ends. Do you have any that jump out at you?
Kind of depends on who's out there for you.
One of the guys that I like that's been performing pretty well, is the old Tyler Conklin. They've got a kind of a plus matchup there as far as tight ends go, going up against Buffalo this week. So I like that one. But Gigi, you tell us who's on the waiver, and that's probably a better bet than us trying to guess there.
Yeah, so I think Michael Mayer's in kind of that same boat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Dolphins give it up to the tight end a decent amount. So I think there's some upside there. You'd always take a streamer on a Seattle tight end, but that's dangerous.
Very. Luke Musgrave's another guy that's been out there in a ton of leagues. Yeah, he's got an okay matchup, and I think that wouldn't be a bad one as well. But Aziz, you let us know what's on the waiver, and let's go at it through it that way instead of us just kind of guessing who might be on your waiver there. He says he might just have to leave tight end empty this week because I don't really want to drop anyone other than Gainwell.
Yeah, you can drop Gainwell and stream a tight end, then turn on pick Gainwell back up.
Yep. And Joe saying greetings from third shift workers. Well, welcome in. Welcome in.
I know we're going to get to the Thursday night game, but
Yep.
I had a buddy shoot me this, and so I want to get your thoughts and opinions on it.
Okay.
He's in a super flex league. He currently has Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, and Russell Wilson.
Okay.
He was wondering if he should trade Russell Wilson for DJ Moore because he needs a little bit of help at receiver.
And a super flex.
Yeah, this is not Art's style of super flex, though.
Fair enough. Is it a what style format? Is it full point, half point?
Full point.
Okay.
He's currently in first place, so he's not worried about the late bye weeks.
Right. Okay.
So he feels good. He said he feels good about that. He's currently in first, but he just wants to get ready for the playoff run.
I mean, there's definitely some upside on the DJ Moore side of things, especially with Justin Fields coming back, right? If we kept seeing the Tyler Bayesian experience there, that was something that was not going to get that job done. Playoffs, though, kind of some tougher matchups there, right? Week 14, you get Detroit. Week 15, you get Cleveland. Arizona's about the only plus matchup that he has, the DJ Moore has in the playoffs there. Everything else gets
I'd still tell you Detroit's plus.
Yeah, in week 14. But if he's in he doesn't have to worry about win and get in if he's sitting in first place at this late in the season, right? So week 14, well, it's a plus matchup. You get Cleveland in your first round. So unless he's getting a bye. So that could be part of that too. Is it a format where he's getting 6, where it's like 6 in the top 2 get buys?
That I don't know. I didn't get that far into it.
Fair enough. So, I mean, if I'm trading away what we started seeing out of Russ and where he's kind of coming through, I think I want more than what DJ Moore offers there, who I like DJ Moore over the last, let's just look through this. His last top 24 finish was week 7.
Would you rather have Garrett Wilson?
Man, oh man.
And the only reason I ask that is because that is the only other quote unquote marquee receiver on his league mates roster that I feel like is worth entertaining.
And Garrett Wilson is kind of that similar boat, right? Like DJ gets you the higher upside, for sure, between the two of those things, between those two guys, right? The Jets offense just doesn't produce enough touchdowns for Garrett Wilson to have that upside. So then if those are the only two options that I've got to do, is DJ Moore or Garrett Wilson, I'd rather have the DJ Moore experience there. I'd rather have that upside. I'd rather have that guy that can absolutely blow up and win me a week type of thing. Garrett Wilson's going to go out there and just not lose me a week, right? Like his bad weeks are still wide receiver 30. So it's, didn't absolutely blow the week for you on that one, but just he doesn't have that top 5 on a weekly finish upside this season.
Yeah.
As far as trading Russell Wilson for that, man, who are his wide receivers? If that's where we're digging into to try and
I have that information. Hold on, please. Godwin, Jacoby Myers, T. Higgins, and Josh Downs.
Yeah, so he needs help.
See, I told him that I'd do that.
Yeah,
This is what I ended up telling him. I said he does need the help, and having DJ Moore on his roster will benefit him more come playoffs than having a third quarterback. And if that's what he's really trying to get ready for, being the 1 seed, I didn't see an issue with it.
Yeah, that being the case, I would roll that one as well, right? Like Russ is serviceable for you, right? But he's going to be back end QB2 as his ceiling. Kyler looked really good coming back. Josh Allen, even on Josh Allen's bad weeks and the weeks the Bills don't play very well and all this and all that, still puts up fantasy points for you like crazy. So, yeah, I'd do that. I would do the DJ Moore for Russ deal and take kind of solidify that wide receiver core. If nothing else, you could roll out and realistically roll out a couple of wide receiver twos. The quarterbacks can potentially carry you a little bit on that one. And then if he's got a solid running back room, that could certainly get the job done. So I would do it.
And 4. All right. That's what I had.
All right. Joe saying, any thoughts on Dalton Kincaid rest of the season? Should I offer him plus a mid-tier running back, Ramondre, Donta, Foreman, or Warren for Kittle? I don't know that there's enough separation between the two rest of season for me to really like.
So how about this? According to Fantasy Pros, rest of season, they have Dalton Kincaid 6th rest of season. I think part of that's because Dawson Knox is going to be coming back. George Kittle's 4th with a projected difference of 3.2 points between the two.
Yep.
So I don't think you do that. I don't think you sacrifice the depth for Kittle, who is boom bust, right? Yes, we saw him have a good week last week with the long touchdown, but we've seen just as many weeks where he goes, 2 for 36 and that's it.
Right. And I wouldn't be trading away Ramondre. Like I get that he disappointed early, but he's been doing okay for you as an RB2 for your roster, right? A lot of folks drafted him as their RB1, which a little bit tough there, but he's a very serviceable RB2 for you. Donta Foreman, I don't know that we see too much run left on the Donta Foreman experience. Both Khalil Herbert coming back, Justin Fields coming back, I think kind of capped that. Warren, maybe, but Pittsburgh has a pretty decent schedule down the stretch here as well. Mm-hmm. So. COD Reaper saying that he let go of Taysom Hill and picked up Conklin. Thoughts? Got him from free agency. And you needed a tight end for this week, so you could certainly run that and kind of go that route. Taysom Hill, it'll be interesting to see how he gets really utilized rest of the season with the bevy of tight ends that the Saints like to run, and it's also going to depend upon who's playing quarterback for the Saints long term here as well.
Yeah.
Like, is this the chance we finally see the Saints give Jameis an actual real shot? I'm hoping so. My Chris Olave shares need it.
Right. You and me both.
So, any other thoughts on that one?
No.
Very good. Well, let's go ahead and get into a Thursday night matchup here. We got the Thursday night. We've got Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore favored by 3.5. The over-under is 46. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take Baltimore at home. Both teams are coming off a loss, short turnaround. And it's going to be hard for Cincinnati to kind of lick their wounds, get back from Houston, get their mind right, in my opinion. So I am taking Baltimore. I thought the over, then I think I wrote the under in the show doc, and now I'm thinking I might want to pivot to the over. Burrow's going to have to air it out. Like, he's going to have to drive the ball down the field. And we saw, this should be a really good game. Like, I'm excited to watch this one, right? The
Right.
division rivals, in a very tightly contested race. Cincinnati needs this game in a bad way after dropping last week to Houston. Baltimore obviously has a little bit of a lead, but wants to keep that. So they have a ton to play for as well. So I'm going to say the under because it's a quick turnaround on a Thursday night game, but I think it's going to be really close to this 46 total.
Yes, I would agree with you on that one. Alex is going Cincinnati. I think he thinks that the Bengals are going to be able to get it done in a must-win game for them. He's thinking the under. One of the props he really likes was Joe Burrow to go under 13.5 rushing yards. I'm there with you, thinking that Baltimore finds a way to get this one done. Right, the 3.5 kind of scares me. If it was I would feel far better if it was 2.5 or 3, but that hook on top of the 3.5. I'm still going to roll with Baltimore, who has really
Buy it
just
down.
kind of Baltimore has really kind of come along and been very good against the spread over the course of the season, right? Like they have an average of about 11 points, 11-point margin of victory on top of what the spread is. And some of those have to do with some of those big kind of runaway games that they've had. Cincinnati's been so-so, right? They're 4-1 when it comes to against the spread there. So I do like Baltimore to cover this thing, even though Cincinnati is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5. Obviously, the last one being this last week where they did not cover there. But all of that to say, I do like the under when it comes to play on this thing. I think that 46 really is a pretty good mark. Like, I think this ends up being like a 24-20 type of game. Like this thing gets really, really close to that. But I think we get just under on the short turnaround there. Not only that, when you look at it, Baltimore has about 60% of their games having gone to the under this season. Cincinnati is about 50+ % of their games also going to the under. So both teams trend towards the under all season long, and that's where I'm going to play at as well. As I'm calling for the under on this one. One of the props I really like is one play can get this thing done. Gus Edwards over 0.5 receptions.
There you go. I'm going to take Joe Burrow over 255.5 passing yards.
I like it. I like it a lot. All righty, we got a couple of questions. Let's hit these things up before we get into the pine and the shine for week 11. So Gigi dropped his the tight ends in there. Looking at Chig, Everett, Higbee, Mayer are the best options there for the tight end. It says he really doesn't like dropping Gainwell because he also has Swift. So if he got hurt Monday or something, I won't get him back.
And
he said he left the options up there. And when he said deep dive, he meant deep.
I think Mayer's the best option for this week out of the guys you listed. So, and you don't want to drop Gainwell? Don't drop him. I mean, it's perfectly fine. I mean, run, you're going to get the 0, and just hope the rest of your roster can make it up. So that's the gamble for the week. But, if you're playing for the long haul, then I don't hate it. It is what it is.
Right. And that's one of those that at this point in the season, depending upon where you're at, right? There's some teams out there that have to go out there and buy a win, right? And if you're in the case that you have to buy a win, you can't leave a 0 on your roster to go out there and do that, right? Like if you got a win to get in type of thing, you can't make that move. But if you're in a position where you can, you're playing more for seeding type of thing, because you're 3 games up with 3 games left to go in the season, and you feel very confident about where you're going to be. Like there is some of that you're better off playing for weeks 15, 16, 17 than necessarily needing to manufacture or buy a win at this point. So if you need to, and you'd rather rock it that way and you can afford it, do it. If not, I think I concur with you that that Mayer's probably the best option. Supreme Steve over on the YouTube, with McBride somehow still available in my league, should I drop Everett or Njoku for him?
Goddard?
Yeah.
I'd drop Njoku for him.
Okay. I would have gone the other route and said Goddard, but that's just because Goddard IR and hasn't been a factor even when he's been healthy this season.
You could argue that, right? If you don't want to carry the injured player, I mean, yes.
And at that point, do you not have an IR spot that you could slide Goddard into and open up a roster spot that way and just slide McBride on? And then you can make the decision when Goddard comes off of IR, which one of those three you're dropping at that point.
Yeah, play it the week before and see what that looks like, because this is the first week without Goddard. You know he's going to miss the next 3 after this one. So, yeah, I think Derek's right. I think you can go ahead and drop Goddard.
So, yeah, because even then, if you're coming back, week 15 is the first week that he's available, I think, coming back. So, are you starting a guy that's coming off of IR with a broken bone, having dealt with a broken bone week 1 of the playoffs? Alex, bench 1, Najee, Hopkins, Flores, Brian Robinson. Or Najee, Hopkins, Flowers, Brian Robinson.
Najee's been on kind of a heater the last couple of weeks, but I think he's the odd man out. Going up against Cleveland.
Yeah, it's just a tough matchup.
Yeah, I think I'd stay away from these NFC North battles this week if you can help it. So Najee would be the guy at bench. Hope that Flowers can do something similar to what Tank Dell did last week to the Bengals.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. And as Gigi saying, yeah, he's in first, 8-2 right now. So yeah, you've got the ability to pick your battles, so to speak, there and play for the long game. Is Miles Sanders worth rostering rest of season? Is there a chance he is fantasy relevant this year? Everybody's only an injury away.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance. He hasn't looked good. It depends on what you'd be giving up to put Miles Sanders on your roster, Joe. Honestly, Carolina just has not run the ball well all season long, and it really hasn't mattered who's in the backfield. So, no, I mean, I wouldn't do it. But then again, it does depend on what you have on your bench, right? Like if you have 3 defenses and you can afford to drop one to pick them up, then yeah. 2 kickers, right? You don't want to carry 2 kickers. I mean, something like that, then yeah, you can drop them and pick them up. But other than that, if you have a roster spot like that where you're willing to give up a guy, I'd be looking at streaming backs, right? Ty Chandler this week going up against the Broncos if Alexander Madison doesn't clear concussion protocol. Things like that will week in and week out help a little bit more so than Miles Sanders, because he's probably not going to play for you even if you have him on your roster.
I concur, and I can also say that he doesn't see my starting lineup. Had him all season in that home league. All right, Steve saying that he's got Kyron Williams on IR right now, so
it's a week away.
Yeah.
So,
Goddard and Njoku. I think my answer is still Goddard.
Yeah. You could try and get real cute with it, right? You could drop in Njoku and then wait this week and swap out Kyron and Goddard and then try and grab Njoku back.
Yeah. You could also pull that same strategy with Goddard too, right? Like you drop him, chances are with him being on IR, people aren't necessarily going to try and scoop him up, but he does have the name power that is more attractive on the waiver. So
yeah, just go ahead and drop Goddard. I don't think that's going to hurt you any.
Right.
He's been a disappointment this year.
Right. It was easy pickings when it came to Pine and Shine. Just Dallas Goedert almost every week, and you hit your Pine. So I know that Alex was rolling that route a lot.
Right.
So, all righty. Well, it is time for the Pines and the Shines for week 11. We're going to go ahead and get into that one, and I'll go ahead and handle Alex's Pines and the Shines this week, and we'll get that rocking and rolling there. So, Pine Shine week 11. We're going to start off with the Pines, and the Pines are guys that we think are going to miss their projections. You know, should you decide to bench them, you decide to bench them, but this is more of a case. So these are guys that are going to miss their fantasy projections and are overrated more so than, maybe you need to bench them outright. But Alex is going to say that Joe Mixon is a Pine this week. Joe Mixon ranked 15 for the running backs here, projected to do about 12.1 points up against that very stout Baltimore defense here. And Alex is not a fan of how that one's looking.
I have Jahmyr Gibbs on this list. The receptions might get him there, which kind of worries me a little bit. But again, Chicago's given up the fifth fewest points to opposing running backs per game over the last 4 weeks. So I think he's a little bit overvalued at RB7. And for that reason, he's on my Pine list.
I like it. So my Pine, I am going to take one Mr. DeAndre Swift, who is currently the running back number 9, projected to do about 13.4 points. And part of this has to do with the fact that the last time that DeAndre Swift was a top 10 running back finish on the week was all the way back in week 2. So he's had some decent performances, but he has certainly underperformed that week 9 finish week in, week out. Kansas City has been tough on opposing defenses there. And when it comes to running backs, they allow the third fewest fantasy points on the season to opposing running backs. Let's go ahead and move on over to the wide receivers. And Alex is calling for Adam Thielen to be a Pine this week. Adam Thielen, currently the wide receiver 14 rank, projected to do about 11.4 points this week.
I'm going the other team in this matchup. I'm saying Pine CeeDee Lamb this week. Currently wide receiver 3, projected to do 17.6 points. Carolina is second in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. The only team giving up fewer than Carolina, the New York Jets. So tough matchup for the Cowboys here in the passing game, but I think this should be finally the week where we see the run game get right and Tony Pollard emerges from the hole he's been hiding in.
Man, I hope. My roster's hoping for that too. As far as my Pine for the wide receiver, I am taking Keenan Allen to miss his projection. Right now, he's currently the wide receiver 6 ranking, projected to do about 15.4 points. And yes, he just came off of a massive performance there this past week. However, I think this is the week that he slows down here a little bit, right? 1, he's a little bit banged up. 2, he's going up against the Packers, and the Packers have been tough on opposing wide receivers, giving up the 7th fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. So Keenan Allen, my Pine wide receiver. Let's go ahead and move on into the tight ends. Alex is going to call for Dalton Kincaid to miss his projection. Currently the tight end number 5, projected to do about 9.5 points this week.
Right on. I'm saying Pine Chigiokonkwo. He's tight end 18, so he's already not on a starting list, but he's been non-existent in this offense. Will Levis is not looking his way. He is not busted out like a lot of people thought. So just sit him. It's not worth it.
Fair enough. So Alex called for Dalton Kincaid. I'm taking a different Dalton to Pine, and that's Dalton Schultz, tight end out of Houston, right? He is currently the tight end 8 on the week, 8.6 points. And I think that he's going to have a little bit of a tough time when Houston meets the Cardinals this week. While the Cardinals have been pretty forgiving when it comes to fantasy points for most positions, against the tight ends, they give up the fourth fewest fantasy points this season. So looking for Dalton Schultz to miss his projection here. Let's go ahead and hit up the shines here. And the shines are guys that we think are going to outperform their projections. Let's go ahead and start off here with the running backs. And Alex is calling for Devin Singletary, who is the running back 20 projection, about 11.5 points. Coming off of that massive week that he had last week, Alex kind of riding the hot hand here against a plus matchup for Devin Singletary.
Right on. I'm going Devon Achane. He's running back 6 on the week, but he's only projected for 10.3 points, right? And so that's kind of where I saw the opportunity is his point total here for this game. So Oakland has not been good against the run. They've given up the 5th most points to opposing running backs over the last 4 weeks. So I think Devon Achane is going to come back off the IR, and we are going to see him reignite, if you will, and kind of pick up where he has been or where he was before he went on to IR.
Fair enough. I am going to take Ty Chandler, running back out of the Minnesota here. We saw Alexander Madison get a little bit banged up here this last week. I thought that what I saw was that he was in the concussion protocol there. And if that's the case, we haven't seen players really clear that inside of a week. So I think that there's a good chance that Ty Chandler gets a lot of run out there in Minnesota. Currently the running back 40, projected to do about 3.7 points on this one. And going up against Denver, the performance is definitely very skewed there. Giving up the most points to a fantasy running backs. A lot of that has to do with early in the season with the Brian Robinson performance, the Devon Achane, the Raheem Mostert performance. But we even saw this last week where James Cook definitely got some juice going on that game yesterday, or on that last Monday night game. So Denver still has a little bit of work to do on that running defense there. And so I think Ty Chandler could have a very good week. Let's go ahead and move on into the wide receivers. Alex calling for Romeo Doubs to be a shine this week, currently to be the 44th wide receiver ranking, 7.4 points projected.
I'm going Rashee Rice, currently wide receiver 32 with a projected total of 8.7. The Eagles give up an average of 57.5 points per game to opposing wide receivers over the last 4 weeks. So big number, most in the NFL by 10 points. The Giants are the next closest. So I'm expecting Kansas City's passing game to start to get right against the Eagles on Monday night, and Rashee Rice is going to be a contributor to that.
Fair enough. I'm going to take the hot hand approach here, and I'm going to call for Noah Brown to deliver yet again, or at least outshine his wide receiver 37 ranking, projected to do about 9.1 points. Noah Brown and the Texans going up against the Cardinals. The Cardinals have been a little bit forgiving. It's a neutral to plus matchup on this one where they don't really give up anything crazy as far as what the league average is. However, they do give up a bunch of fantasy points overall, and I think that we can see Noah Brown sneak up into at least wide receiver 2 territory this week. Tight ends, let's head that way. Alex calling for George Kittle to be a shine this week. George Kittle currently the tight end 6 ranking, projected to do about 9.5 points this week.
Very good. I'm going to go with Luke Musgrave. Chargers giving up the most points to opposing tight ends right now. Currently slated for 6.4 points is all. I think Luke Musgrave can top that.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a pretty good call there. I'm going to take Tyler Conklin as my shine this week. Tyler Conklin been serviceable for you as a streaming tight end, and I think he can get that job done again. He's right now the Tight end 17 projected to about 6.1 points. The Bills give up the 10th most points to opposing fantasy tight ends there. And, we've seen Tyler Conklin put up a couple of pretty decent finishes over the last little bit. And really kind of get it done without even having to fall into the end zone to get a top 24 type of finish and even a top 12 type of finish there. So wouldn't surprise me if we see Tyler Conklin realistically get something in the neighborhood of about, 4 for 40, 4 for 50 type of thing, and kind of sneak his way into some sneaky fantasy relevance in that kind of tight end 11-12 spot here. So I think he's in for a very good week. Any other thoughts on the Pine or Shine?
No, you and I got, well, really me. I got some work to make up for. I don't care about you. You're leading the way. So I want to beat Alex and you. You just want to beat Alex.
I want to beat everybody, but I'm in a position where I can get picky. Although I can't say that just from the standpoint that we've seen big swings where, you can have 150 points, 150 point lead in this game, turn around quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Right.
So we've seen that happen a couple of weeks here, and I hope not to be on that end again. So we'll look, because I've given I've given back more than I would like these last 3 weeks. So it's time to get right. It's a get right week for me.
Right.
So, all righty. Let's we got a couple of other questions here. Who should I start? COD saying, who should I start out on my wide receiver? Thielen, Metcalf, Debo, Boyd, Brown, Johnson, Myers. I don't know that I'm wanting in on the Jacoby Myers train right now. Just where he's been at.
I think it's Metcalf, Samuel, and Brown. I think you want to get that hot hand in there. So Metcalf, Samuel, and Brown.
Cosign. I'll go with that. Gigi, is Goddard for sure going to IR because he's on my wire right now? I might be interested in stashing him for playoffs.
I mean, if you have the spot, yes. They didn't have to report it last week, right? So I would suspect that, and really they don't have to put him on IR until Sunday this week. They just have to do it before the game. And so we could be waiting all week for this decision, but as I understand it, he did fracture his forearm, and there's no reason for the Eagles to not put him on the short-term IR and have him sit out the next 4 games.
Right. I'm trying to look and see if I could see anything pop up on that. But yeah, I thought that was the news on that one as well, that he had right there, suffered a forearm fracture in week 9. So while broken bones don't heal typically inside of 4 weeks, right? And maybe if they do surgery, that kind of stuff on it, but there's some other things there. But I can't imagine that they wouldn't put him on IR and let it, because the Eagles plans aren't, especially with where they're sitting at, their plans are after week 18 of the regular season, more so than where that looks at. So,
right.
Gigi, would you rather have Swift or Pollard for weeks 15, 16, and 17?
So Pollard's plays Buffalo, Miami, and Detroit. And Swift plays Seattle, the Giants, and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
You want Swift in the weeks.
Yeah, I was going to go with Pollard right up until you said Swift schedule.
Yeah, and that's what it is. He's tougher, he's tougher for the next couple of weeks, right? He's got Kansas City, Buffalo, I think, is a plus or mid to plus matchup for them. San Francisco and Dallas, right? Those are tough weeks in 13 and 14. But after that, 15, 16, 17 with Seattle, the Giants, and Arizona, it's swift, and I don't know if it's as close as people want to believe.
No. I mean, yeah, Buffalo probably a plus matchup. Miami definitely a plus matchup for Pollard. Detroit, it's been a tougher team to move the ball on, and that's in championship week that you'd be getting that one. Versus what you said, Swift had the Cardinals in week 17.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a smash on the Swift side of that, because that's really where you're looking for. You're looking to have to be able to play these guys in week 17. Yeah, you get the Giants in semifinals, Cardinals in finals. Yeah, absolutely. CD Reaper asking James Cook or Brian Robinson for the starter this week.
I'm leaning Brian Robinson.
I am too.
Yeah, Brian against the Giants, as opposed
Versus,
to Cook against the Jets. Brian Robinson.
Yep, absolutely. So, righty. Well, guys, if you have any final questions, let's get them in the chat here. Let's throw them out here. Let's get those chit chatting, and we'll get any of those last questions answered here. But kind of while we're doing that, was there any other kind of storylines that are what has been any of the crazier storylines happening so far after week 10 that this is kind of when we started talking about that, where we had some of those technical deals, but like I don't know what's more surprising, that if like the Raiders were being 5-5, the same records as the Bills, or the fact that some of these teams that we thought were Super Bowl contenders are on the outside looking into the playoff picture right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest surprise, is seeing Bengals and Bills both go down, and the Ravens, right? Three, Super Bowl contending teams go down, and for all of Kansas City's deficiencies, they look good sitting through their bye week with a very comfortable lead on home field advantage, and going to Arrowhead in December and January is not fun.
No, not at all. So, well, I think I don't see any of the questions coming in here. I think that we're going to call it a night. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
No, good luck, right? Making the final push. Only a few weeks left. A lot of trade deadlines last week, this week, next week in that type of fashion. So, continue to jockey lineups, and thank you for your continued support. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Make sure that if you have any questions, anything like that, hit us up on the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF. Best place to support the show. Head over to YouTube, click that subscribe button, ring the bell. We'll be back Friday night, 11 p.m. Eastern, running down the weekly slate here for week 11. Y'all have a good one. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Alex will be back next week. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.